phones to a silent mode so that they don't ring during the speaker's time. Thanks a lot. Hubert, please, it's over to you. 2 hours and your presentation is on. Just to remind you that your slider has a range. The slider has a range, so please don't go beyond a certain point. The slider won't work. Yes, that point is fine. Or you could work from the podium. So over to you, Hubert.
Works? Yes.
Yeah.
What is another one? Good morning, everyone. It's good to be back. Today we are, or I would like to discuss a few things with you, which are challenges and technological developments within the maritime industry. And I thought first we do the challenges, and then afterwards we look at the developments. Yes. Let me see if I can put this somewhere. No, maybe here. Yeah. Probably one of the challenges that the industry is already facing, but that certainly will move on for the years to come, of course, is the fuel. Nowadays, you could say that almost all ships are on heavy fuel or on fossil fuels. But of course, in order to accomplish the sustainability goals, we have to switch to zero carbon alternatives like methanol, hydrogen, but also ammonia. Now, the technical thing, or you could say the technology for these different type of fuels like ammonia and methanol exists to a certain extent. I mean, certainly ammonia, there's a number of complexities still. It is also difficult from a logistic point of view, which means it's not available everywhere. And if you want to have a global network like container shipping companies, you need to have a coverage around the globe. So there is a problem with the logistics. But it also requires, apart from the infrastructure, it requires a training to manage these sort of new engines, you could say, in a safe way. When you look at the current, and I'm pretty sure that is almost all around the world, is that the seafarer training nowadays, which is based on the IMO STCW, the standards for training certification for watchkeeping of seafarers, is based on fossil fuel. So if we want to have the seafarers, the engineers, also being prepared for methanol and hydrogen, we need to do a large amount of training. The IMO in London is aware of that, and they said in order to have at least the engineers of the future being prepared for that, or seafarers who are already employed to have some sort of additional training. A number of initiatives are taken to have these crews and new seafarers being prepared. Another challenge, you could say, is replacement or the retrofit. So existing ships, you can say, will we change their propulsion system with an engine which is fitted for these new energy sources, for these new fuels, but also when a fleet is aging, you have to do a new building. I think that the new building program currently is certainly in line with the replacement, but it remains a costly and time-consuming process. Number two is that indeed retrofit is something that depends on a number of things with regard to the vessel, and is certainly also a costly process. Due to the ongoing ambition or aim for our industry to be more energy efficient, ships need to have all sort of saving or energy saving technologies. That is happening certainly, but again it's a costly and time consuming process. And finally, something which is more related to the real operation of a vessel. When you decide to do slow steaming in order to reduce your fuel consumption, plus being just in time sort of schedule, you need a very strong coordination. To give you an example, which is quite some time ago, this is probably some 10, 12 years ago. I was working for Maersk container lines in Copenhagen, and then we discussed slow steaming in order to reduce the fuel. And some of the ships at that time were doing 22 knots, which was their average speed, at sometimes 250 up to 300 metric tons of fuel per day, which of course is quite a lot and comes with high costs. So we said, okay, let's go and reduce our speed by 2 or 3 knots, which already provides you with a substantial reduction of your fuel consumption. However, trade management, so I was in chartering, so chartering vessels from ship owners for Maersk, but the trade management within Maersk said, oh, not so fast, because if you reduce your speed by the vessels, and let's say we are talking about a Asia-Europe trade lane, in order that now we have 6 vessels in this schedule, by reducing your speed, we may have 7 vessels, which means an additional vessel. So that means higher costs with regard to your chartering. So that's why reducing your speed will have a positive impact on fuel consumption, meaning efficiency in your energy and also less emissions. It creates an additional cost in the number of vessels. Digitalization, of course, is something that's really becoming an important, you could say, technology in our business, And this decarbonization, so the reduction of your carbon emissions, means you have, in order to really do that effectively, you need real-time data. You need to know exactly what the ship is using, what the emissions are, and how the vessel is performing, which means you need a lot of data requiring data gathering, which means that you need systems to do that. So either this sensors in the, for instance, in your engine room, but also on the bridge. So it means that investment in systems that can do this data gathering and also the data analysis. And as you can see, number 2, many operators lack this digital maturity to adopt performance monitoring and optimization systems. So for a number of certainly smaller shipping companies, it can be a real challenge to cope with that data gathering and also to analyze it. These new fuels, alternative fuels, can be toxic, explosive, or cryogenic. So again, you must be trained for handling and emergency response. In Amsterdam, one of my colleagues who is responsible for the technical curriculum, so the engineering topics, despite the fact that STCW, as I mentioned, does not cover these alternative fuels, so there's nothing nothing can be found in the rules with regard to the training of seafarers now. He said, at least we'll discuss the alternative fuels, which is, well, in the Dutch system, then in year 3. So in year 3 of their training, we'll deal with the alternative fuels in order to have them understand what it's all about and indeed the risk. Even though we know that when they go to sea, so when they start working for a shipping line, oops. Or is it I did? Sorry. Okay, thank you. Even though these alternative fuels are not really in use. Another challenge around the globe is the shortage of skilled seafarers. The International Chamber of Shipping, together with, well, I come to that maybe. Anyway, the International Chamber of Shipping produced a report which I think was in 2024 or 23, but anyway, in which they produced a data analysis of skilled seafarers for the years to come. And their conclusion is that it'll be, well, I won't say massive, but at least a very big number of skilled seafarers, or a lack of number of skilled seafarers in the years to come. We in the Netherlands observed a decrease of the number of students every year at our nautical colleges. So since 2015 we see a decrease. And of course we have the discussion, why is that? Why is it that less and less young people will come to or will decide to seek a career at sea? And the other thing is that we observed is that those who graduate and will go to sea are, well, on average, are 5 years at sea. So after 5 years, they decide to continue their career ashore. The consequence of it is, well, in the Netherlands, is that our fleet, around 1,100 ships, 75% of the crew, which is from captain to ordinary sailors, so that for the entire crew, 75% is non-Dutch. But on the other hand, you could say all those ships are safely manned, so there is enough. But still, there is this shortage of seafarers. Another thing is there is this, I think it's in SOLA, Safety of Life at Sea Convention, which is the safe manning rules. So the number of people that needs to be on board in order to have a safe manning, or so safe ship from a crew point of view. I think that some ship owners are trying to find ways in order to say what is the absolutely bare minimum of seafarers that is needed on board the vessel in order to have still a safe crew. And one of the things that certainly smaller ships in the Netherlands are doing is to say, okay, we train our seafarers in both disciplines, so they are skilled as a deck officer and they're skilled as an engineer, and then we can use them on both sides, so in the engine room and in the on deck. We go even further. The modern ships, so built in the last 5 or 6, 7 years, the engine room is, you could say, sort of, it's not necessary that there's always someone within the engine room. And these ships are sailing around Northwest Europe, so they're always quite close ashore. So when something really happens with the engine, they can contact the manufacturers of the engine in order to have guidance in repair. And again, this is all to reduce the number of people on board. On the other hand, you could wonder whether the working hours of these seafarers is not too much per day. On a global scale, again, there is a huge shortage expected, and so I really wonder what will happen in the years to come. Here some data with regard to that. So there's close to 1.9 million seafarers around the globe, which includes 850 or over 850 officers. You can also see that the majority of these officers and ratings are coming from Philippines, Russian Federation, Indonesia and China and India. 90,000 shortfall maybe already next year. So these were, you could say, the main operational challenges. Then when we look at the more strategic challenges, the first is a regularity, a certainty, or actually a lack of that. The IMO has defined its targets, so we know, for instance, by 2050 we need to be, it needs to be zero emissions. So we have another 25 years to fix that. but it's not always clear what is in between. Even though, yeah, okay, we say, yeah, we know that by 2013 is this percentage, and then it'll reduce slowly. But it's not always entirely clear. And the effect of this is that when you not really know what will happen, ship owners are indeed in this wait and see strategy. I think I told you this 2 days ago, so on Monday, is that a number of ship owners say, okay, so we are still 25 years away from 2050, so if I build a ship now that will be in operation for 25 years, I can still use fossil fuels, and then I will see what happens in 2050. So they are really in this wait and see strategy of not building ships which are entirely made for hydrogen or methanol. And the other thing with the, why they have this wait and see strategy is that now you could say the global fleet is sailing on fossil fuels, which is the main fuel that we're using, and we do not know what will be the main fuel of the future. There are several possibilities, but we don't have a clear one which it will be, and that's why many ship owners are in this wait and see strategy. No one, you could also say no one wants to be the real front runner. Of course there are examples like, I know there are some ferries in Norway, but they go of course back and forth, who are completely on methanol or hydrogen, because then they know we go only back and forth, and we have a methanol fuel station, or we have a methanol factory, so we are always safe when it comes to bunkering. But for someone who's a ship owner who is sailing around the world, it's unclear. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of money is required. New vessels, a fuel infrastructure, and also port upgrades. The shipping industry is indeed a high capital intensive industry, and we still see it with these sort of well, changes or transitions, like other fuels, more digitalization, which means upgrades and new vessels. Very large sums of money are required. I think the some estimates were made by an English scientist, Martin Stopford. He's a maritime economist, which indeed is a number in trillions of dollars if you want to have the entire fleet, which is something like 90,000 vessels above 100 gross tonnage. It is indeed a few $1 trillion of investment. Whereas you could say a lot of, well, certainly the big ship owners, for them, they could invest in for instance, in new vessels. I think CMA, CGM, the French container line, and Maersk and Evergreen, so all from the very big companies, they are starting with ships that are green. The ship is also then painted green and everything. So for them, it is possible to do a few of these investments in new technology. Whereas for most ship owners, which are small, it's not that easy. So it is indeed, the investment needs will be a challenge. Certainly in the bulk market, and also in that is the dry bulk and the wet bulk, there is a very large number of stakeholders, and they have not all the same ambition, the same goals, the same, and so they have sometimes misaligned incentives, which creates, of course, this sort of challenge. How then to come up with a you could say an industry that is more sustainable. So if there's not really a coordination of the key decisions, then it'll be difficult. The IMO produces these aims and said, okay, by 2050, for instance, when it comes to sustainability, we want to have a zero emission industry. But it comes to each and every individual state, so whether that is the flag state or the port state, in order to make that happen and to impose the rules and regulations. And so that's not always all the same, and that creates this sort of challenge, how to make that happen. I think I already mentioned this. There is at the moment still a very minimal production of green fuels, and not all around the globe. And we don't know what the cost will be, and whether there will be sufficient supply. So that makes your long-term planning difficult. In when you're a ship owner, you need to discuss or you need to make a decision with regard to new building. That is not something for the next 2 or 3 years. Those are long-term planning, and because it's long-term planning, you need some sort of clarity with regard to these green fuels and what it will mean for the future. And so long-term planning becomes difficult because you don't know a number of things. Now, of course, there's always uncertainty, but with these issues, this transition to new fuels, it becomes even more complex. And the risks sometimes are too large to say, okay, I'm going to build a vessel. I mean, if you now say, I'm going to build a vessel which is solely using hydrogen, you will end up with a ship somewhere, but certainly not sailing. That may happen indeed, that we will see a reshape of global trade flows. The last couple of years we've seen an increase in routes, so routes became longer. So not only the maritime trade increased, but certainly the maritime trade in ton miles, so the number of tons that were shipped or transported over a number of miles. But that was because of geopolitical tensions around the world. But this is what we mean here is that because of decarbonization, production may, so industrial production may shift, and so we are going to find shorter routes or regionalize our supply chains. It might lead to a sort of nearshoring, so to bring our production closer by. Yes, the carbon leakage and the policy divergence. At the moment, there is not something like a global carbon pricing system. I think it was mentioned Monday that there is a European trading scheme, but that's only for European, for Europe. So that's not for the entire world. I mean, the European trading scheme is quite a complex system, and I know that ship owners and the European Union and Brussels are having huge debates about this trading scheme. But again, it's a regional thing, which means that maybe other regions in the world will have a similar system, but it's also possible that they will have a system that is not the same, that has different standards, different rules, which could lead to a competitive imbalance between parts of the world. Basically, you could say with this this challenge, it is a sort of a question mark, because we don't know at the time what it will, where it will lead to. So we have to really see what comes out of it. So what to do then? Scale up green fuel production and standardize the infrastructure for it. It's easier said than done, but at least I think it's something that we have to look into. But it also means that we, as an industry, have to decide what will be the fuel. You could see what will be the new fuel if we switch from fossil fuel to. So I think it's a bit of this chicken and egg discussion. Are we first going to decide what will be the fuel of the future and then scale up, or are we going to scale up a number of things and then it'll be and it'll remain a big question. Yes, we have the IMO, which is the global, you could say, organization that will look after safety and pollution, and so would be the best organization in order to have a sort of alignment of the regulations. When it comes to finance and the incentives to de-risk investment, it'll be more difficult, because shipping or ship financing is quite a complex thing, and I doubt whether it'll be possible to have a sort of global standard for it. And the complexity of how ships are financed around the world is, let me put it this way, I don't think there will be a sort of global standard for financing. But on the other hand, you could say in order to have ship owners and other parties willing to invest, willing to change their ships to do retrofitting or to do a new building, something with regard to finance needs to be done. We need to have a workforce and an ongoing training program for the next generation vessels. If those vessels are sailing on these renewable energy sources, we need a workforce that knows how to deal with it. We need to have a ecosystem, or we need to have at least a system that will the fuel and operational efficiency. So we need to have systems that will collect data with regard to the fuel consumption and the vessel performance in order to come up with a fuel and operational efficiency. Collaboration, but it I know that in the Netherlands we have, to give you an example, we have a ship owners association. We have a well, there are, you could say, 2 or 3 ports in the Netherlands which are, you could say, really seaports: Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and then one up in the north. But that's actually quite small. So you could say we only have 2 ports. But those 2 ports, of course, do have some discussions, but also they have their differences, and sometimes it can be quite annoying that even that close to each other and we still have our different views. But we also have which is called Netherlands Maritime Land, which is a sort of organization that brings together the ship owners, the ports, the dredging industry, the offshore industry. The offshore industry has also its own sort of association. So we have a number of associations that all are together. And I'm not saying that it's always, they're all 100% aligned and they're completely agree with each other, but at least there is this sort of collaboration. Whether that is always under a clear governance framework, no. Because we also have to deal with the Dutch situation, but then of course we also have the European Union, which is in Brussels, which determines a lot of things, which are not the same for all countries. So it is quite a challenge to get everything under this sort of framework. But I think in general you could say that because we have these frameworks, they are certainly helping to create understanding. But it doesn't mean that all involved, so all stakeholders involved in that setup have the same view, and so that we have a clear idea. Okay, we want to be, or we as a whole industry will make sure that, for instance, we will achieve those goals. There's still different views, but at least there is a sort of framework. Okay, then let's see one other issue with regards to developments, which is the autonomous ship. There is an idea, or there is at least a sort of development going on to have at a certain stage a completely autonomous vessel, which means no crew on board. there are some tests around the globe. I know that, for instance, Japan has set a ship to cross the Pacific without a crew, but then it's not entirely autonomous because the ship was guided from a shore station. But a lot of technologies these days developed are in a sort of, you could say, a sort of already in a sort of schedule towards a autonomous vessel. One of the sectors where autonomous ships are already in use is in vessels who are doing all sort of measures at sea. So sort of research vessels that are already entirely autonomous, or at least there's no crew on board. Another one which the International Chamber of Shipping has identified is the new fuels. In the decarbonization I already mentioned. In order to have a free emission industry by 2050. It also means, I already said that, what are the midterm or the intermediate solutions? Now, we already know there is LNG. The other ones are, I think, very, very small, so like alcohol and bio-oil. Wind assistance, yes, it's used. There are some ships which are using these sort of foils on deck in order to have wind assistance, and I think that, or I know that in recent history we also used a sort of kite in order to reduce our energy use. And so there are some others in order to have a energy reduction. So what are then the technical developments? Again, alternative fuels, which is one of the probably the most important one in the years to come. But we have some challenges there, as I said, safety and storage. LNG is, of course, already in use. There are ships that are using LNG. For instance, LNG carriers. They are using the LNG as their fuel. But it's considered or viewed as a transitional fuel. So it's not something that you think that will be forever, but it's something in order to, from fossil fuels to LNG and then to another one, which is then methanol or whatever. There are some pilot projects for short sea shipping. Of course, the advantage of short sea shipping is that it is easier than to have an infrastructure for bunkering and storage. Yeah, wind sails, kites, and rotor sails are being used. It's still on a rather small scale as an option for reducing your consumption on long-haul voyages. So the autonomous vessels, I mentioned that we are already using several trials around the world, like here in Norway. So they are with a sort of ferry that goes back and forth. We have a sort of autonomous vessel, or unmanned at least. Another one is artificial intelligence being used for a number of things, like your route planning, maintenance, consumption. Um, um, route planning and predictive maintenance, well, route planning is something that's already in use for quite some time. Predictive maintenance is becoming more and more an important development. It's based on lots and lots of data that will tell you when to have a look at a specific system in order so to say, okay, I will overhaul this part of machinery and will not wait till it breaks down. So it's based on very large amounts of data, which means that in order to have a data analysis on these huge volumes of data, you need artificial intelligence, but something, computer systems, to make your decisions. And so the Amsterdam University, we will have 2 guys in the coming years who will look into that and who will do research on predictive maintenance based on large amounts of data and how to implement that on board. One of the difficulties, though, is that shipping lines are not very willing and not very keen always to provide the data. So a few slides back I told you you need some sort of cooperation when it comes to these sort of programs. One of the difficulties is to have the data available. Smart ports, so Internet of Things, digital twins, and I think my colleague Dr. Sujat Mubarak will tell you about it, is this digital twins. They are not only used for the maintenance of ships, but they can also be used as a tool for improving the performance of your port. Port community systems is another one, is to have one community system where all stakeholders within the port, agents, ship owners, terminals, customs, port state control, all who are operating in a port are on one system instead of having all different sort of systems to improve your port efficiency and to reduce the turnaround times. Blockchain and e-documents, of course, is another one that will be getting more and more attention to use as a tool for your entirely, or the administration around the vessel, around the maritime transport, to use and to make the whole process more transparent and reduce paperwork. Then with regard to the energy efficiency. Air lubrication systems, that is a technology where, as it says, we will inject air bubbles under the hull of the vessel. So there's all sort of small bubbles, air bubbles around the hull, and the idea behind it is that we have less hull friction between the hull and water, and so that will then create less friction. Less friction means less fuel consumption. So it means that you can reduce it, but of course you need the system. There are some it is used still, I think, in a state of where it says, yeah, it works, but not always. Hull and propeller optimization, so the use of designs, what sort of design of my propeller, and advanced coatings of the vessel, and also to have a constant cleaning of your propeller. So nowadays we have all sort of systems that can clean the hull underwater, which is also a sort of unmanned, a sort of small crawler that goes along your hull and that can also clean your propeller while the vessel is in port. So while you're in port, hull and propeller can be cleaned, which of course then creates an increase in your fuel efficiency. A ship produces a lot of heat, the engine room, and waste, and it is sensible to have a system that converts this engine heat into usable energy. So again, we have a reduction of, or actually an improvement of your vessel energy efficiency. So it actually means that you have a total system within the vessel where the energy that is put in is used as much as possible, and have as less loss of energy as possible. Ship design and construction innovations. More and more you see that we use modular and lightweight designs, which means the construction of the ship is done in a modular way. So we produce, or the shipbuilder makes modular or modules of the entire vessel, and then these different modules are assembled. And the other ambition then is to have these modules more or less standardized, so I can use these standard modules for one or more different ship types, and also use different materials in order to have lesser weight. The other, of course, advantage of modular is that it creates easier retrofitting. So then, if I want to change my vessel, it's easier to do so. Dual fuel engines. That is to have a flexibility between the conventional and the low carbon fuels. Certainly when you look at the new building programs of larger shipping companies, for instance in the container shipping, you will see that they say this vessel is designed and built in a dual fuel mode. What it means is that the ship is using now fossil fuels, so heavy fuel oil or gas oil, but the ship is made in such a way that it can be that it can also use low carbon fuels. It means though that that's not something that you say, okay, for this voyage I used fossil fuels, and on my next trip I will use low carbon. There is a number of changes that have to be made within your propulsion system before you can use the other fuel. But at least they are prepared for another fuel consumption. The IMO Hong Kong Convention, which now finally is in power. It took quite some time before it was finally ratified, but it is, I think, it's a step forward in the end of life ship dismantling, where we are aiming for a green ship recycling. one of the things is that with this Hong Kong Convention, we will initiate the recycling of a lot of materials that come from a ship that's at the end of its life. So then we have sort of start of a, you could say, circular economy. Still a lot that's required, but at least it's a good step forward that the Hong Kong Convention now is in place. Digitalization, of course, comes also with a number of risks. Cybersecurity, the increase of digitalization also means that we need to have a stronger cybersecurity system. Of course, there's then with this ever-increasing level of digitalization, there is also the fear of what will happen if the system is hacked. A few years ago, Maersk was being hacked, and so in the early morning they became aware that the system was hacked. And so this was not on board the vessels, but it was their global trade system, so the system for their for the container transport. And so they closed it down because they said it's hacked. And there was one mainframe in somewhere in Western Africa. There was a guy who thought when he heard it that he pulled out all the plugs, and so there they had a sort of a backup that was used to start all over again. But I think the whole problem lasted for 24 hours, but the damage was something like $300 million because of the hack. You can also imagine that when we have ships with a very high level of digitalization being at sea and then hacked, what the consequence will be if you have no longer the possibility to do sort of manual operation. So we need to increase our cybersecurity. Yeah, so there are some IMO guidelines already with regard to the cyber risk management, and it means that we have to create all sort of safety and security protocols. Again, when I look at the curriculum of seafarers, cybersecurity and what to do in those sort of standards, what to do when it happens is almost, well, at least in the Netherlands, is non-existent. And I think it's also something that we have to prepare our future seafarers and also those who are already at sea, to prepare them and to explain to them what to do. Onboard carbon capture systems. I know there's a which is called Stena Line. That's a ferry between Rotterdam and the UK, and there they have a sort of onboard carbon capture system. But that works because when they, I think after 2 or 3 trips, they can put the carbon capture that's and stored on board, they can deliver it to the shore. And there are a number of projects going on and what to do with the carbon capture and storage, and how to some chemical processes in order to have it, I think, reused in another way. So there are some pilot projects on board underway with carbon capture and storage, but it's still in a very early stage. Let me see. Oh, sorry, that's right. emission monitoring and compliance systems. First of all, in order to have to check whether your emissions, and to have, which is number one, the European Union emission trading scheme, you need to do monitoring. So in Europe, we have this European trading scheme which started in 2024. It starts with monitoring, reporting and verification. So in order to have a trading scheme up and running, you need that every ship is monitoring its emissions. And then the trading scheme will become up and running in the coming 2 to 3 years. I think by 2028, 100% of your emissions are in the trading scheme. And the trading scheme is based on a cap and trade scheme, so every ship owner has to monitor its emissions and then will pay on these emissions, but can also buy if it wants to have a higher level of emissions. The IMO also is asking for the monitoring of your energy efficiency, which is the energy efficiency for existing ships, so that's the WEXI, but there's also a WDI, which is for design, so that's for new ships. So both are in order to have a further it's the monitoring, or at least to create a very clear understanding and insight of what the emissions and the energy efficiency of new and existing ships is. From what I understand is that the system will lead, this European trading scheme, I think in the coming years will lead to a lot of debates and discussions whether it works and whether it will be sufficient. But I know that it's underway, and so we have to deal with it. Oh, sorry. Cold ironing, which means that when the ship is in port, it doesn't use its own auxiliary engines for power, but you're connected to a shore connection. Not only in the EU and China, but also in the US. Port of Los Angeles is using that. Port of Amsterdam is working on it to have all these shore connections. Again, that's a tough task to get it fixed, because the Dutch energy supply is having some difficulties. Sometimes we do not have enough, or the entire network is having a sort of over usage. So it is a challenge, but at least it's something that's going on. And of course it creates an enormous emissions of a reduction of emissions while the ships are at port, which is, I think, a plus. So you could say that the industry is dealing with some challenges and consequently a few developments. I think the biggest one, of course, is the decarbonization. That will be the biggest challenge and also the biggest issue for the years to come. Not only because it's a costly one, but also I think there are different aspects. So technology, infrastructure, to name a few. More or less in line with that, we have the improvement of the efficiency, the energy efficiency as a vessel, but also in the ports to have a far better operation. And then number 3 is the digitalization and how to adapt to it in the regulatory process that comes with it. I think those 3 are the main, you could say, the main challenges, and consequently, or as a consequence of that, the developments. They will be the main things for the future. Maybe one is, I should have add to it, is that also we need sufficient people to make it happen. So there is a shortage of seafarers, but maybe there can also be a shortage of technicians who are required to make it happen. And so there is cost, fragmented standards, and a slow alignment, regulatory alignment, which will be the main barriers for it. In order to have a greener, smarter, and more resilient industry, I think resilient is becomes one of the key topics in this summer school. Three things are which will come with that: the climate, the digitalization, and an economic realignment. So we have a number of things, but again, it's all about greener, smarter, and more resilient. Zero emission vessels, yeah. It will take some time, but it will be the mainstream use. Alternative fuels, dual fuel and hybrid propulsion systems, and the ETS, as I already mentioned. Yeah, so as I said, the onshore power supply, port automation, and artificial intelligence will get a bigger influence on ships and ports and everything. And in order to have these new fuels, we also need that the ports will become energy hubs. I know that in Rotterdam they've now been working on on building I think it's a methanol factory in order to produce this methanol, and then it should also be green. To have that available for the ships. Yeah, so we will see these autonomous vessels. Again, this is certainly not a standard today, but it will be more and more. And as I said, in coastal and short-haul shipping, as well as in these sort of research vessels, or these survey vessels, where they just do a lot of measuring of depth and salinity levels and what have you. And for those vessels, you can use an autonomous vessel. Yeah, maritime autonomous surface ships. There's a project going on in Rotterdam with a mass program where they will use also vessels within the port to do a number of surveys. And IMO is working on the regulations. Yes, there are already onshore control centers. I think ABB is having one or two where a very large number of data is sent from these systems. So there's sensors on board collecting data, and the data is then sent to the control center in order to see what's going on. And this can also be helpful then for, as I mentioned, the predictive maintenance. So we can use the data and then almost instead of that an engineer walks around in the engine room and says let's do this or that, he's being told what to do by the control center on shore. As I already said, blockchain, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence are more and more involved. Cargo visibility, real-time, predictive maintenance, and performance optimization. Digital twins, a lot of shipbuilders these days are already making a digital twin of the vessel. So they monitor the digital twin and then use the data and the outcomes in their in the maintenance and the operation of the vessel. And they're all based on optimization, the reduction of downtime, and to reduce our emissions. And I already mentioned that I think cybersecurity will become more and more important. A bit more on the business side. Platform-based shipping, logistics. We see a number of parties nowadays in the industry who are not an owner of ships, nor they are chartering the vessels, but they are bringing cargo owners and the ships together via platforms. Will take care of everything like paperwork and things like that. So they will then be, yeah, you could say they are sort of in between, but they certainly are changing the model of the business. Yeah, how can I have a reduction of idle capacity and improve efficiency? Well, to go to shore, to this what is called shared assets. I think those two, the platform-based shipping and the number two, the shared assets, are, so you could say, sort of in line with each other. It means that these platform-based shipping companies, or platform-based shipping logistics, they of course have a much better overview of where there is capacity available, whereas one ship owner only can look at its own fleet. And so if there is this in-between platform-based shipping, he can, so the ship owner can have hopefully more use of its vessels. There are already a number of initiatives and cooperations between a number of financing institutes who will say we will finance your vessel, but only when you're working according our rules, which is a more green approach. And so if you're not showing us your green initiatives, we will not finance the vessel or your other investments. Retrofitting, of course, is I mentioned that is something that will be on the agenda. But for a vessel at a certain age, retrofitting can be quite an expensive thing. However, for instance, scrubbers, which is a system to reduce your emissions, then can be an alternative in order complete retrofit of your engine room. And also it makes the vessel, if you want to extend your operational life, you can do that by these sort of, as it's called, modular retrofitting kits. So it makes your ship still usable for the coming future. Yeah, we discussed the Hong Kong Convention, so recycling of materials. Yeah, so we need those real-time reporting systems for the trading scheme, the energy efficiency indexes, carbon intensity indications, and safety. I'm not sure whether this already is introduced. I think that the European trading scheme is not dynamic, but I'm not entirely sure. But at least it is expected that when we have a real trading scheme, that these prices will be more and more dynamic. Green shipping corridors, I think, will be on the agenda tomorrow. There are more and more of these green corridors where, so for instance, between Singapore and Rotterdam, where there is a fuel and regulatory standards. So there, all the ships who are in this corridor then are aligned with the standards in order to have again, a more greener operation. Yeah, and so we have a number of, I think in total there are something like 25 of these corridors around the globe. And it's, as it's stated here, is a test bed for scalable zero emission operations. So it will help to see how it works. So it's actually a perfect example of, of testing all sort of standards and whether it indeed will create a less emission operation. Let me see what I meant here. So you could say when it comes to the fuels, with regard to what are the main developments, yeah, and what is expected. Methanol, hydrogen, ammonia. Some will say we will even go to nuclear-powered vessels. Of course, it's used in some countries within the Navy. It was used back in the 1950s and 1960s. There were one or two vessels, cargo vessels, on nuclear, who were nuclear-powered, but it was just only those two vessels. It certainly is an interesting option. I think it's quite expensive, but on the other hand, you are completely independent of bunker stations, because I think a vessel can manage to sail for at least 5 or 6 years. When you look at vessels, dual fuel, digital optimized, that I think is what we will see in the years to come. Green fuel bunkering will be standard, but not yet, but certainly will carry on. We will see, as I said, a number of digital systems that will become more and more important in the industry with regard to our operation, for improving the maintenance, routing, and to be compliant. When you look at the governance, and to be compliant, a number of tools will be or are already in place in order to reduce those emission levels. And finally, we will see, well, that the shore operation, certainly when it comes to the technology or the engine room, will play a more important role. How is it? Questions?
Thank you very much for this nice presentation and talking about the new technology which is coming. I have actually two questions. Number one is that in one of your slides you have asked, you are telling that alternative fuels are toxic, cryogenic, and explosives.
Again.
Yes. If we are going for the alternative fuels and refusing fossil fuels,
yes,
again toxicity is there, and this toxicity is not going to affect the marine biodiversity again, number one. Number two, you are talking about the seafarers, those seafarers which have not trained to adopt these technologies which you are talking about, the all new alternative fuels. So what will be the option if they are not going to have those trainings, especially in underdeveloped countries like Pakistan and India?
I'm not sure whether I got it right. Sorry.
So what he wants to know is that the alternate fuels have their own issues, their toxicity issues, etc. as well.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with those issues?
It's a good question. I think that the effects of using those different fuels are to some extent unknown. So we know that, for instance, if you use methanol and hydrogen, they are more, they're greener, so they're less emissions, or even zero emissions. But we also, because we haven't used it at such a large scale, we do not know what the effects are. I mean, we know from ammonia that it can be very toxic, but for the others we don't. But to give you an example is that we as University of Applied Sciences in Amsterdam, we are talking to, or we are working together with a very new company in the Netherlands, and they are doing a lot of tests with methanol and hydrogen. And the reason is that we want to know, okay, what does it mean if we use these new fuels? But I think it's fair to say that what will happen, what are the risks when we are going to use it on a larger scale, actually we do not know. I think again the technology. So if you want to use methanol and hydrogen, they know the technology, but we do not know what will happen. Simply because we haven't used it at this scale. We have used it only, very, very little. That also means that we are not training these. So we have to train the new seafarers. The IMO, so this STCW convention, which is the standards for the training of seafarers, does not include renewable energy. So there is nothing about methanol or hydrogen or ammonia or whatever. Now there is, at the moment there is the SSCW, so this convention will be updated, but that takes at least 4 or 5 years, so it's expected that it will be in place in 2029 or maybe 2030. So that will take quite some time. And so the IMO acknowledged that if we wait that long, then we have to come up with a program after it's finally the new STCW is available. So now they are saying, okay, what can we do in between? So they have now started a few initiatives to have a sort of intermediate program where we can teach, whether that is here or in Europe or in America, to train new seafarers about renewable energy sources. But I think that's, yeah, so that's how it works. What is the technology? There is certainly also I think some parts will deal with the risks of these fuels. But again, we have to see what will happen. So yeah, that's a bit of a risk. I think the number of tests and the number of checks that are already done is substantial. But what will happen, we will see.
I guess you could compare it to plastics when they were first developed. We really didn't know that this would become such a big issue. So in the long term, we really, these alternate fuels it could be another disaster. Who knows? We really cannot say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
Yeah.
Sir, my question is that at ports, especially on the bulk side, we mostly get work from third parties or stevedores, and also these vessels come from all third parties. So what do you think, how can we encourage them to use these new renewable resources or green energy?
Well, of course, the port is part of the coastal state, so port state. So every port state can say when a vessel enters the port, these are the minimum standards. Nowadays we already have in place which is called port state control, and around the globe there are a number of different port state control, you could say, conventions. So within Europe it's called Paris Memorandum of Understanding, which is the rules and regulations for port state control in Europe. So when a vessel comes into a port in Rotterdam or in Amsterdam, the Dutch government, so port state control in the Netherlands, says, okay, we want to check your vessel. And they check on safety and a few other things. And if the vessel does not comply with the rules and regulations, port state control can say, so the port state, which is in this case the Netherlands, or when the vessel here comes to Port Custom, it will be Pakistan as a port state, says you're not allowed to leave the port until you have fixed these issues. Now the same can of course be applicable if a vessel comes to a port and says, you're still using fossil fuels and you have not a scrubber or you don't have this and that. And it can so one step further is that the ship can, deny entering the port. So the IMO is making these sort of goals, so sustainability goals, but it's up to each and every individual state how to impose those goals on ships, whether they are ships under your flag. So every nation is a port state when it says a vessel enters. So then as a port state I have some capacities to detain a vessel or to say or to check a vessel. But as a flag state you also have some responsibilities, which means when a vessel is under Pakistan flag or under any other flag, the flag state also can say, these are my rules and regulations, and you have to deal with it. So as a flag state you can say, if you want to have my flag, so you want to register the vessel in this country, these are the rules and regulations that you have to deal with. So there are a number of possibilities, but it's not the IMO who will do that. That's up to each and every individual state. And of course, yeah, there are differences. We know that. That's why around the globe we have what is called flag of convenience. So a lot of ship owners say, you know, the ship owner is located in country A, but says, my ships are under the flag of country B. That's why by far the biggest fleet is under either Panama or Liberia flag. I must say that's also to a very large extent related to tax and so financial considerations. But again, that's why we have this flag of convenience system.
Or maybe because they're more relaxed in those countries than in others. And so doesn't that become a challenge for the developing countries? Because then if they put too many restrictions, that it would impact the business that's coming to their port.
Whether the flag of convenience system, I think the ship owners from around the globe will use that system. Whether it will have an effect on these sustainable goals, I don't know. But I think this flag of convenience started long ago for as I said, I think mainly for financial reasons, maybe also as well as some other issues that were when your ship is under Panama flag is easier to deal with. What the effect will be for developing nations and developed nations, I think in that sense a bigger problem is that shipping is a capital-intensive industry. And I remember when I was here, was it 2 years ago? I think the head of the shipping national shipping company here told us about his plan for new building, and he said, but one of the big issues here is indeed to have the financing up in place. So I think that's a challenge. Of course, you can say I'll bring my ships under another flag, so that can be helpful, but then still, yeah, new building is very highly capital intensive, and I think that's so. Again, if you look at the future, where as I spoke about digitalization, so ships with a lot of sensors and these new propulsion systems, so renewable energies, will bring even, yeah, will create even higher costs. So yeah, that can be a difficulty.
And also when you're putting in the monitoring systems,
Yeah.
Those have a cost incurred as well. So that adds cost to the businesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
using the ports.
No, for sure.
May I? Mr. Hobart, may I ask a question, please? Right here. First of all, I appreciate your discussion, and you are actually dealing with the modern technologies and discussing all these things in your presentation. I'm a researcher, and my domain is HR, and I was thinking about interdisciplinary aspect, and particularly related with the port business. In port, you know, humans work, and where humans work, there is the aspect of safety. And in your discussion, you talk about digital twins. So can we use this aspect, new aspect that you discussed, digital twin, for human safety and their respective compliances? Can we integrate these two aspects related with the port business? Since humans work there and there's a matter of safety, so can we use digital twin technology for human safety and their compliances?
I think that when it comes to human safety, first and foremost, human safety is, as it already is by the humans. So human safety is, I think, for everyone who works in a port, whether it's on a terminal or whether it's in towage or whatever your job is the training of each and every human individual, and each and every human individual should be aware of it, of the safety. Now, of course, we can bring very large amounts of technology in our operation, which we already do. I mean, when you compare a port today with, let's say, 50 years ago, we have a very high level of technology. But the human safety always lies with each and every individual, and so I think technology can help us in improving the safety, but we should always remember that each and everyone who works in a port needs proper training with regard to safety. So no matter what the level of the technology is, the safety remains something that you should always take very seriously. I think again that a lot of technology has created a higher level of safety, but we always have to be aware of it, and never should be I mean, I think still, even today, what are the big what is a real risk to danger is fatigue and skills. So if you, as I talked about, for instance, safe manning on board a vessel, if you reduce your number of people on board, but the operation moves on, and so the level of what is expected remains the same. Despite all this technology, fatigue can be a very risky thing, and when you look at the incidents, and you can probably here as well as in the Netherlands, we have this institute that deals and that issues the reports when an incident happened. And when you look at it and you say what happened and why was this accident, why did this accident happen? It's most of the time it's the human error, the human factor that creates the incident. And then when you look what happened is fatigue or not really trained or communication which is not a good. And these are human things. Oh, sorry.
Herbert, hope you are doing well. Herbert, you talk about that LNG can be used as a alternate fuel, but you said that there are a few limitations as well attached to LNG using in a long run. So what is your call about LNG?
Sorry, again.
I'm asking that LNG, I'm talking about LNG as a fuel, as an alternate fuel.
Yep.
So you said that there are few limitations attached to LNG in a long run. Is there any restrictions attached to LNG for a long-term usage as an alternate fuel?
The long term.
Yeah. I'm talking about LNG, liquefied natural gas.
LNG. Whether, yeah, well, it's considered as an intermediate. Well, that's I think that's the status today. That they say LNG is producing less emissions than fossil. Well, it's also a fossil fuel LNG, but it's producing less emissions. However, they also say that there are, I think, the level of methane, I think it's called, is higher than heavy fuel oil. Well, if you go to a zero emission, LNG is not an option, but for the coming years, it certainly will be an energy source. So yeah, I think we will see LNG for quite some time, but I'm not sure whether that's the correct answer. Liquid natural gas. Yeah, it's gas under. Yeah.
But it's clean energy, no? Like we hear about the clean energy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's.
Like every time things are changing, like because like 2 to 3 years back.
Pardon?
I don't think that enough empirical evidence is available.
No.
The thing is that we don't have a consistent policies. We always change after decade. We like started from coal, then we came to fossil fuel. Like then we have to talk. Okay, we have to switch to LNG, liquefied natural gas, and now we are saying we have to go for the like solar or ammonia. Or,
I think it's now more about affordability than the environment.
Yeah. Well. Yes, because
financials come in more than the consciousness for environment. Your cost of doing business is less. So it's you're taking care of one aspect, but you're ignoring the other. So
like every development has an impact on your nature. Like what you are doing, if you are developing a terminal, you are disturbing the nature. If you are doing the dredging, you are disturbing the nature. So like we have to have the mitigation measures of every aspect in that, where like we have to see the financial aspect as well, like technical aspects as well, that what is more feasible to the environment to have a win-win situation for all the stakeholders at the end.
sure, in countries like ours, it's that balance between development and conservation. So it's so if we are considering conservation, are we going to stop developing? So this is a very difficult question for the decision makers.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you, Robert, for this very informative presentation, first of all. My question is that you talk about different technologies that are now being integrated in this port and shipping. For example, digital twin you talk about. So what are the different challenges we can expect integrating these technologies? And already this particular the experts are working on it in terms of expecting what challenges may be resulted because of integrating of these technologies, and how to overcome these things, because it's something new and it's costly as well. As far as I know, these technologies, integrating these especially for digital twin, because sensors are involved and those things are involved, and it's quite expensive. So what are the mitigation or already predictable kind of things that you are going to make? So how come this help in terms of bringing improvement in this shipping, and at the same time what are the costs involved, because this is going to be a challenge for you. Thank you.
I'm not sure whether I understand it, but that's my mistake. But you said there are some different technologies.
Yeah, I was talking about the technology specifically regarding digital twin, because it's costly.
So, no, I don't get it. Sorry, I have no idea. Maybe I come to you, then I can understand. Sorry.
Asking about the technology.
Yep.
How is it going to create challenges for port and shipping when you are going to integrate these things?
If you integrate the different technologies,
Including the digital twin as well.
okay, so now I understand. Integrating these different technologies in port and shipping. Ooh. That's indeed. Well, to start simple, in order to, for instance, in order to reduce your emissions and things I mentioned, like these indexes, you need data. So in order to say what is the performance of my vessel, or what is the performance of my container terminal, or whatever, you need data. And in order to have data, you can say, okay, I'll take pen and paper and but that's impossible. So you need sensor technology, then you need data analysis, and then you, based on this data analysis, you need to make decisions. That's a digital thing. So the ambition to reduce our emissions, I need all sort of digital systems. When I'm starting to use those digital systems, and for instance what I mentioned, if I have a ship where all these sensors are measuring all sort of performance indicators of the vessel, and then the data is collected and is sent via satellite to a shore station. Cyber attacks are on the brink. So that means that cybersecurity is also part of it. Using other fuel types, methanol, hydrogen, it means that also we need to create understanding of how it works. So again, we need digital systems. When you look at the operation, so we have cargo, whether it is containers or bulk, but certainly let's take a look at containers. And we want to have a very smooth operation, just in time, as minimum damage as possible. We are using, or we are intended to use blockchain, Internet of Things, and so on. And again, so we're integrating these technologies in the operation. But it also means that your ship and the shore needs to be equipped to do that. So for instance, when we are talking about an e-bill of lading, it also means that each and every node in your network needs to be equipped to deal with an electronic bill of lading. So that is a challenge, because also not maybe for one ship, but when we're talking about the use of e-bills or e-documents and a blockchain, then it means that each and every one in the supply chain has to be involved wherever you are. So it means that we all need to make these investments. So that can be a challenge. So I think the integration of the technologies is a clear point. You're absolutely right in that, but it's also a challenge. I fully, I think that's the case. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your talk. We have been interacting since last 3-4 years. My question is regarding the lot have been talked about the technology, but I will ask the question about the regulations. It is a very important factor, what I see. Immediately after taking oath, President Trump, he actually pulled US out of the Paris Green Deal, and he actually made a very vague statement that there is nothing like sustainable development goals, and he actually announced that will not be part of Paris Green Deal. So my question is that if the #1 emitter of GHGs, they pulled them outside out of that deal and is all regulations, then how do this all regulatory framework going to work? Because #1 emissions are from US, then China, then India. Even European Union comes at #4 or #5. European Union is taking so much steps, introducing EU ETS, but the largest emitter of greenhouse gases, they are saying there is nothing like climate change and we are not going to part of that. So what are your comments, and how this will shape the regulatory confinement which you talked about earlier in your presentation? We need to have a single framework of the regulations so that everybody should be abiding by that rules. Thank you.
Yeah. I think 90% of the research world says it's due to human activities that we have greenhouse gas emissions. I think that also, even in the United States, probably the majority of people will acknowledge that that is the case. However, a few who are unfortunately maybe in power deny it. Frankly speaking, I think that the best way forward is even though this administration in the United States, the Trump administration, says there is no climate change and we just move on. And for instance, one of his statements was drill, baby drill, I think, when it comes to oil. The opposite side is that a lot of oil companies says, yeah, that's all nice and dandy, but there is no need for such an increase in oil exploration. So they're a little bit hesitant. But again, I think the fact that someone does that even in a very, very, very powerful nation, the maritime industry should not step aside and say, okay, if this guy, and we as an industry should say, okay, we're absolutely certain that it is, I mean, we are producing, 3% worldwide of global emissions. So we have a duty and we have a responsibility as an industry. Whether someone says it's bullshit or not, put aside. The good thing is that the merchant navy fleet in the US is very, very little. So in that sense, they're not a... Okay. But I think it is a challenge, but we as an industry should say, we move on.
My question is related to the, as we have ahead to 2035, and we have set the target for zero carbon to 2050. Right now, what do you think, that are we pacing with the carbon challenges, or we are underestimating what the challenge will be?
It's better because it's the noise.
I'm asking that we are headed toward 2035.
Yeah.
We have set the target for zero carbon.
Yes.
So are we on the pace with the limitizing the carbon in the industry, maritime industry, or we are just underestimating the?
Are we? So you mean, are we on track? Are we? I think the first goal is 2030, so we will see. Probably not. Probably not. As I gave you the example of ship owners who say, you know, we have 25 years to go, so no, I think we're not on track. We have all sort of ambitions, but we are not on track. And because of costs, because of a wait and see approach to a certain extent. And again, there are a number of companies who are really doing all sort of initiatives. But I spoke to he's a former colleague of mine. He's now working in the terminal business, and he said maybe it end up in a sort of big bang, negative, but I don't know. I think there are a lot of initiatives, but on the other hand, there are also a lot of uncertainties, and we all know. As I said on Monday, I think changes can sometimes be traumatic, or at least it's extremely difficult. And these are certainly when you talk about renewable energies, that's a massive change or transition. So we are working on it, but we're not there.
So nice of you, ma'am. Thank you. Hi, Hubbard. My name is Tahira Farid, and I have a question. Like, I belong from the military background, right? I'm working in the military. So we have the entirely different concept of, like, as you talk about the technology, the AI integration into the system and all that thing. So if we use internet and the technology in our system for the military consignment or in the vessels, so we can caught by the enemy and all that things, our data can be hacked and all that. Yeah, so security issues. So do you have any alternative solutions for that? And the technological ways you know that the other countries are following or implementing in order to revamping these things? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. So it's about
so that the knowledge gap between the first two lanes and the backbenchers to be mitigated. For a ship, we have to have two type of systems. One is the generators which produce electricity and so do emissions, which require diesel. Secondly, the engines which require diesel or sort of fuel, another emission creation. So keeping in view the latest trends like EV by Tesla, although they are not an engine maritime site, but whatever fuel we use, it will have emissions. But if we go for electric engines for maritime side, and for generators, if we go for solar or anything of that sort, so, and we divide and bifurcate these two segments, generation and engine movement. And then maybe at university level, we can have like some research paper on these two things. So our young students over here, for a fruitful thought, that they can have some bright ideas how to go about and how to mitigate these challenges. Thank you.
Electrical propulsion already exists. We have already electrical, but that's only for rather small vessels. For big ships, it's non-possible. But there is diesel electrical propulsion with azimuth rotors. I think that it's certainly sensible to have a look at the use of electrical propulsion systems in the industry. But again, I think the limiting factor with electricity is you cannot use it for extremely large vessels, so then there is a restriction. But on the other end, it's for instance, for a lot of port operations, it can be an extremely useful thing. And of course, you mentioned Tesla. Let's say for tugboats or pilot tenders or these sort of small vessels, then of course it makes sense. And I think already in tugboats they are using, which is they use still fossil fuel to create a very large amount of power when they're pulling or towing a vessel. But when they move from one operation to the other in the port, they're using electrical systems. So they have a sort of dual or hybrid system. We'll talk later.